Om Shivaya, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. Nice to be with you all. The first part of the webinar is entitled Achieving Affectionate Detachment. And as in previous webinars, I'm going to ask you some questions before I give the answers. And therefore it's helpful to have something to write down your answer on, old-fashioned paper and pencil or modern tablet. If you don't have something already, please get it while we pause here for a second. Movies often depict a son or daughter who, now an adult, holds deep-seated hard feelings toward one or both parents for things that happened while growing up. For example, in one emotional film scene, a daughter rattles off a long list of unhappy interactions with her mother. When I was 10 years old, you did this to me, and then on my 12th birthday that happened. When I was 15, you did this. When I was 20, I brought a boy home and you were unkind to him. When I was 22, this happened. Piling up early reactions is as natural as it is debilitating. As grown-ups, we can continue adding to our subconscious stockpile of you did this to me resentments. Recently, I spoke to a man who was filled with resentment about how unfairly his business partners had treated him. His mind was totally in the past. One partner cheated me by doing this 4 years ago. 2 years ago, another partner did that. And last month, this happened. Our first question. Drawing from the 4 words, detachment, unaffectionate, attachment, and affectionate, describe this state of mind, the one we were just talking about. Give you a second to answer. The words are all on the screen there. I'll give the answer in 2 slides forward. Did the son or daughter demonstrate any good feelings toward the parents? Did the businessman like or respect his partners? No. There were only disturbed feelings between them. There was no affection. It was unaffection. Was there attachment to the hurtful memories? Yes. There was powerful clinging to the past and frequent mental rehashing of unsavory events. I call this common condition unaffectionate attachment. So that was the answer from those word choices. Unaffectionate attachment. It is a state of mind filled with bitterness, misunderstandings, bad memories, and even grudges. Anyone can fall into this abyss. Some live there throughout life. So if we become overwhelmed by past acrimonies, we need to learn how to extract ourselves. That's the point. We need to learn how to extract ourselves. Gurudeva emphasized the art of working with the mind's natural tendencies as a fundamental part of spiritual life. Quote, when the aspirant is able to meet ordinary happenings and respond to them in the effortless wisdom born of detachment, that indicates that his striving is genuine. When he is able to encounter conditions that send ordinary people into states of disappointment or discouragement, and when his emotional nature indicates mastery over these lesser states of consciousness, he is well on his way toward filling the gaps of a natural growth of the instinctive vehicles body, mind, body, emotions, and intellect. Unquote. To maintain equilibrium on the path, we need to clear the subconscious mind of such negative attachments, which I am calling unaffectionate attachments. The presence of significant unaffectionate attachments in the subconscious will cause the mind to constantly dwell on the past. So that's why some of us constantly dwell on the past, because we have significant unaffectionate attachments. It is hard to understand that this hampers our creativity and progress in the present, diminishing our quality of life. It is not hard to understand that this hampers our creativity and progress in the present, diminishing our quality of life. One of the victims is our ability to meditate. Unresolved emotional issues in the subconscious can make it impossible to quiet the thinking process when sitting for meditation. In his Yoga Sutras, Sage Patanjali addresses these blockages as externalizing samskaras that need to be transformed. Externalizing samskaras. Our next question. How do we remove unaffectionate attachments? So this is a very key question. How do we remove unaffectionate attachments? So I'll give you some time to think that through. I'm sure many of you gave the answer that I'm going to give. Gurudeva gave specific practices for removing them from the mind. The primary method he gave is Vasana Tantra, known as journaling in Western terminology. He defined it as writing down the events that we are troubled by and then burning the paper in an ordinary, non-ceremonial fire. Watching our concerns, our hurts, our negative recollections disappear in the flames is cathartic, impressing the mind with the possibility of riddance of past traumas. We can even write and burn letters to people that we hold animosity against. This simple practice is effective in removing from the subconscious mind unaffectionate attachments to past experiences. It needs to be said that we don't forget those past hurts and unfairnesses. Rather, the negative emotion is dissolved, released, or burned away. Watching the paper burn is helpful in achieving this result. For deep-seated hurts, the writing and burning may need to be repeated several times, so one time might not be enough. Our next question. For powerfully traumatic memories, what did Gurudeva recommend? He recommended something different than Vasana Tantra for powerfully traumatic memories. Give you a second. Figure out your answer there. For powerfully traumatic memories, such as being frequently beaten by a parent, simply writing it down may not be sufficient. The negative impression, or samskara, of such painful experiences may be so deep that you have to do something physical to achieve release. For such instances, Gurudeva has even given the flower prayaschitta, or penance. It consists of putting up in the shrine room a picture of the person you are resenting, and then every day for 31 days placing a flower in front of the picture and, in that moment, sincerely forgiving him or her. For traumatic memories, flower prayaschitta is a very good technique. Okay, we have our next question. Similar to how we started. Drawing from the 4 words detachment, unaffectionate, attachment, and affection, describe this new state of mind, i.e. when Vasanada Tantra and the flower penance have been successfully done. What state of mind are we in that can be described by 2 of these words? What happens when we perform practices like Vasanada Tantra and the flower penance? We arrive at stage 2, unaffectionate detachment. Unaffectionate detachment. We still don't like the person, but at least we are not thinking about them all the time in a negative way. We have detached ourselves partially. We have no fondness, no love, but we are no longer dwelling endlessly on the past. We have understood the situation. Returning to our movie example, in the next scene the mother responds to the daughter's outburst. I did the best I could in raising you. Suddenly the daughter accepts that, realizing her mother had her own challenges and was not perfect, and it was unrealistic for her to expect a perfect childhood. They had now reached an understanding that released the attachment, but still it didn't awaken affection. They had a cold relationship. Our next question. Excuse me for a second here. There we are. Okay. Same 4 words. Drawing from the 4 words detachment, unaffectionate, attachment, and affection, describe the next stage. So I'm sure you're getting better at this. I won't give you as long. Well, what 2 words describe the stage that's coming up? Of course, that is not the goal. The goal is affectionate detachment. So affectionate detachment is the next step. And of course, the question is, how do we achieve affectionate attachment in Gurudeva's teachings? How do we achieve affectionate detachment? Early in his ministry, Gurudeva gave a deceptively simple method for cultivating affectionate detachment. Quote, the best way to keep the actinic, spiritual, force flowing through the physical body is practicing the art of giving, doing little things for others you have not been asked to do, unquote. That's not difficult, right? Doing little things for others that you have not been asked to do. Try it yourself, and you will find that, yes, it does work. It actually takes us from unaffectionate detachment to affectionate detachment. It builds up love and good feelings toward those to whom we have had hard feelings in the past. Of course, one act of giving doesn't change everything, but repeat it over and over again, offering little gifts, doing things for others that they don't anticipate, changes the feelings between people. It creates more love, more kindness, and warmth. This is an important practice to incorporate as a perpetual behavior, because there is always the opportunity for new hard feelings to develop in life. Harmony is something we have to work at the rest of our life, because we will be interacting with people the rest of our life. For those on the spiritual path, getting along with people, ensuring that new hard feelings don't develop, is an essential part of karma management. And we have our next question. What can this harmony lead to? In other words, we've achieved affectionate detachment. We have harmonious relations. What's the next step in the development of this relationship? The resultant harmony is empowering, but Gurudeva takes it even further. He says, quote, "It eventually leads to greater actinic understanding," unquote. That means we not only have good, kind feelings about others, but we also understand their nature better. Actinic understanding, meaning it's coming from the sub-superconscious, or it's intuitive. Part of the reason we don't get along with some people is that we just don't understand them. A natural assumption is that everyone is like me. In reality, you may not meet anyone just like you your whole life. People are different, sometimes very different. If we are aware of such differences, misunderstandings, and hard feelings, if we are unaware of such differences, misunderstandings and hard feelings can arise. Our attitudes and interactions naturally improve when we are aware of the differences, sensitivities, needs, and limitations of others. Next question is asking for a summary of the major points. List the 5 stages of attachment detachment we have covered so far. 5 stages. When the attitudes of affectionate detachment are the daily norm, not only do we have kindly feelings toward others, but we also understand them in an intuitive, actinic way. It is not an intellectual analysis. It is an intuitive sense of who a person is, what karmas he or she has brought into this life. And because we appreciate that person's nature, we make allowances and get along with them better. That completes the process of achieving affectionate detachment. We start with unaffectionate attachment and then move to unaffectionate detachment. From there we move to affectionate detachment, which comes in 2 stages. The first stage is expressing more love and kindness towards others. The second stage is understanding others more clearly, cognizing the nature of our family, friends, and acquaintances in an intuitive way, from the inside out, and therefore loving them more and being able to get along with them better. The deeper truth is that we are learning about ourselves the whole time, and our inner changes are reflected in our relationships. That's our part 1. Moving on to part 2. presents similar ideas about changing the subconscious mind from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which he refers to as samskaras. We use that in our lexicon when we want to name the subconscious mind in Sanskrit. We call it samskara chitta. So Patanjali just says samskaras. Same idea. So of course we're all familiar with verse 2 of Patanjali. It's the definition of yoga. Yoga is the restraint of mental activities. As we mentioned earlier, most individuals who talk to me about their efforts to do so have difficulty accomplishing this. Fortunately, Patanjali gives a suggestion as to how to succeed. That's our next question. How do we succeed in restraining mental activities? What is needed? What answer does Patanjali give? His answer is, the restraint of these mental activities is achieved through practice and dispassion. Twofold answer. Practice and dispassion. If the question was asked, how do we make progress in restraining mental activities? A common answer given would be just the one idea of practice. This verse is pointing out that in addition to practice, the other important component is dispassion. In other words, the reason many of these mental activities are occurring is because of our attraction towards someone or something. Next question. What type of practice is needed to make progress? The subsequent verses further elucidate. Practice is the exertion to achieve steadiness in the state of restraint. That's the definition of practice. But this practice becomes firmly grounded only after it has been cultivated uninterruptedly and with devotion for a long time. We're pointing out three things there. Uninterruptedly, with devotion, and for a long time. Dispassion is the knowledge of mastery of one who is without thirst for objects that are seen or heard about. The supreme state of dispassion is the non-thirsting for the gunas, which arises from the perception of the Purusha. Then my comment, which I already gave. Clearly, the expectation that success in meditation will come quickly is incorrect. Not only does practice need to be for a long time, but done without interruption and with devotion. Dispassion, it increases through attenuating the kleshas of ignorance, attraction, and aversion through the regular religious practice of Kriya Yoga. And my next comment, one reason practice needs to be done for a long time is that a changing of the subconscious mind is involved, and the subconscious changes slowly. This involves the concept of samskaras. Okay, a little lexicon question for you. Please define samskaras. What's a samskara in this context? This context, it doesn't refer to namakarana samskara, which is a specific type of samskara. This is the broader meaning. Samskaras are imprints left on the subconscious mind by experience from this or previous lives. So it's the impression in the subconscious mind. Samskara, impression. Gurudeva explains, all actions, reactions, and pranic patterns from one life carry forward into the next, but in condensed or seed form as tendencies. Swami Shivananda, Divine Life Society founder, makes a similar statement. All samskaras lie dormant in the chitta as latent activities, not only of this life, but of all previous innumerable lives. He then gives an analogy for the condensing process. As a merchant closing the year's ledger and reopening a new one does not enter in the new all the items of the old, but only its balances, so does the spirit hand over to the new brain his judgments on the experiences of a life that is closed, the conclusions to which he has come, the decisions to which he has arrived. This is the stock handed on to the new life, the mental furniture for the new dwelling, a real memory. Samskaras are also activators, constantly propelling consciousness into action. In this regard, they are described as subliminal activators. Restraint transformation is when the externalizing samskaras are subjugated by the appearance of restraint samskaras. These emerge in the mind at the moment of restraint. A tranquil flow of consciousness is produced by these restraint samskaras. In other words, whenever restraint is employed, new samskaras are generated which subjugate the externalizing, i.e. worldly ones. Restraint samskaras influence the mind to be without mental activity and therefore remain in a tranquil state. That's explaining why the practice needs to be for a long time. Every time we put effort into controlling our thoughts, it's creating a restraint samskara, and these build up and gradually reduce the tendency for the thoughts to go external during our meditation. But it's a slow process. Another source of samskara transformation from externalizing and worldly to internalizing and spiritual is from mystical insights that come through deeper meditation. The scope of this mystical insight is distinct from the insight gained from scripture and inference owing to its particular purposiveness. The samskaras born from that mystical insight obstruct the other samskaras. So that's the second way that the samskaras that tend to cause us to think outside are changed, is through having intuitive insights during our meditation period. These intuitions remold the subconscious as well. Gurudeva comments on changing the subconscious. After the subconscious mind has been very, very carefully reprogrammed into the contemplative lifestyle, there is little difference to us between the subconscious and the sub-superconscious, intuitional states. Therefore, basically, we have moved our awareness into an entirely new mind structure, or at least it seems new to us. This is called the superconscious mind, or the area of the superconscious that has the subconscious, which is connected with the physical body functions and everyday life affairs. Gurudeva continues, the sub-superconscious state is the total man functioning at a higher vibratory rate than he did when in the instinctive intellectual area. What is the sub-superconscious mind? It is the subconscious of the devotee well programmed in the contemplative life. This devotee can work with himself and move awareness freely through any area of the mind that he wants to, consciously, without being hindered by habit patterns and reactionary conditions of the past, which were programmed in the subconscious for him by parents, school teachers, friends, and the public in general as he came along through life from birth. So to summarize that part, before we move on to part 3, when we think about Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, it's common to think of verse 2. Yoga relates to restraining mental activity, our thoughts. But all of this is showing that yoga also involves the reprogramming of the subconscious mind, because that's what is generating thoughts. The impressions in the subconscious mind are the cause of a lot of what we think about. And this ties into how we started in changing unaffectionate attachment to unaffectionate detachment to affectionate detachment. In accomplishing that, we seriously reprogram our subconscious mind and move it toward becoming sub-superconscious, which is the goal. The third part of the webinar relates the previous ideas to Patanjali's concept of klesha, 5 forms of wrong cognition. So we'll review them. I'm not going to ask you what are the 5 forms of wrong cognition. We haven't studied them that much. I'll tell you what they are. Ignorance, I amness, attraction, aversion, and clinging to life are the 5 kleshas. Ignorance is the field of the other kleshas, whether dormant, attenuated, intercepted, or activated. That's the verse, and then I'll give you my comment. Commentators indicate they are dormant in a baby, attenuated or lessened by yogic practices, intercepted when one temporarily blocks another, or fully activated in an average person who is not even trying to control them. Ignorance, avidya in Sanskrit, is seeing that which is impermanent, impure, sorrowful, or not self as permanent, pure, joyful, and as self. Interesting definition of ignorance. Avidya. Well, my comment? In common usage, ignorance refers to not knowing how to do something, such as being ignorant about caring for dairy cows. Ignorance of the type mentioned in this verse is different. It is referring to looking at something and totally mistaking its nature. We don't understand what it really is. I amness is the identification, as it were, of the powers of vision and visioner. Well, visioner, of course, is the Purusha, the soul, and the powers of vision is referring to our instinctive mind, intellectual mind, and ego, which in Sanskrit is referred to as manas, buddhi, and ahamkara, which are collectively referred to as antakarana. This false identification causes a sense of individuation, which is the basis for activities in the world. Attraction is that which rests on pleasant experiences. My comment: of course, an individual is attracted to a multitude of objects and individuals not previously experienced. What this verse is saying is that one's strongest attractions are based on memories of having experienced pleasure. So powerful, pleasurable memories are a large source of attraction to the world. Clinging to life, flowing along by its own momentum, is rooted thus even in sages. This verse is pointing out that the dread of death is found in everyone, even the wisest of men. The previously presented topic of unaffectionate attachment as related to the kleshas is as a type of aversion. Aversion is dvesha in Sanskrit. So dvesha or aversion is a klesha, wrong cognition. Aversion is that which rests on sorrowful experiences, the opposite of attraction. Comment: when the concept of being detached is initially thought about, it would be common to focus solely on lessening our attachment to what we consider pleasurable. That's the normal way of looking at attachment. Give up desire. We think about the positive attraction that we have to give up. Patanjali also includes the opposite, which is aversion. In other words, negative events in our life and strong dislikes are as much of an externalizing factor as attraction. So that's how it all ties together. The unaffectionate attachment or aversion to someone is a strongly externalizing factor that we need to give up. Both strong attractions and strong aversions can also be described as attachments. These kleshas in their subtle form are overcome by the process of involution within the individual. Comment: a tendency to a worldly activity, when it only exists as a samskara, can be overcome through the process of involution which takes place in the practice of meditation. So by going in meditation, we can overcome that when it's just in the form of a samskara. However, as mental activities, they need to be overcome through meditation. Comment: when that tendency to a worldly activity is present in our thoughts, then it needs to be overcome through insights generated in meditation. That's Gurudeva's idea of the seed of desire is a false concept in relationship to corresponding objects, and we can get rid of it by finding the source of it. The kleshas are the root source of the stored karma and thus may be experienced in the present visible birth or in an unseen future birth. Comments. The kleshas are also the causes of our actions that relate to worldly pursuits. All such actions create a karma. So we're creating karma based upon incorrect cognitions of the world. And therefore, the karma comes back to us as more worldly events, more worldly experiences. But when we can break through that and overcome the idea of these incorrect cognitions, then we don't involve ourselves in certain activities anymore, and the karma is much more sublime in future lives. That concludes our webinar for today. Thank you very much. Om Namah Shivaya.